YouTube, how's it going? It's Matty B. Thank you guys for watching the channel and following along with me. I really appreciate each and every one of you. If you guys have been following along or watching my channel at all, you know that we did all 11 rounds of pro motocross on this YZ252 stroke here behind us. Don't worry, y'all. I got tons of background footage. I ain't going to make you guys stare at me this whole time. No choice. Actually, you guys do have a choice. I'm not going to make you choose that. I did 7 nationals last year, so I kind of dipped my toe in last year, and then this year I had really high hopes for it. I was supposed to have a practice bike and a race bike, which was going to be a big upgrade from last year, and then unfortunately I was ghosted on the race bike, so we ended up just ripping this thing all summer long, no choice. But I had really high hopes for it, and then over the winter I spent a lot of time recovering from injury. I had the big wall smash where I burned my leg, got a good concussion, and just all around banged myself up. Took some time off and came back and crashed again right away. So had a really rough winter, a lot of time off the bike. Wasn't really able to keep that on the bike fitness base going, but did all I could off the bike. And then if you guys know me at all, you know I kind of keep myself sharp by racing locally all the time. It's really good for the sprint speed and whatnot since it's a short race all the time. And that's how I keep myself afloat financially in ways as well. So usually I'm racing locally all the time. This year I only got to race locally twice before the Nationals started, so that was a bit of a rough one. I got my first local race in March at Muddy Creek, and then right after I got sick, so had to spend some more time off, and then went and did the Glen Helen 2-stroke World Championship race. If any of you guys followed along with that, it was a complete disaster. That didn't really do much for me, but dig myself into a deeper hole physically and confidence-wise. So the lead up to the Nationals was not good at all, and I actually had started having some problems where my hands were going numb. I was having really bad problems with arm pump, and just all around was kind of a disaster. And I had gotten to the point where I actually thought the season wasn't going to happen. I had all but thrown in the towel, and then we were watching the end of Supercross and just seeing all the factory guys go out, and I just couldn't help but see the opportunity that was staring me in the face with all those guys out. So I kind of decided right there and then, I think it was Nashville Supercross, that I was going to do my best to give it a good shot. Headed down to south of the border to get some training in, and the first day I started training, I blew up last year's race bike. So at that point, I had no bikes, no nothing. So I was very thankful with the help of LTD to help me get this race bike back here. I went and picked that up a couple days later and started my prep for the outdoors. I only got 2 weeks in down at south of the border, but unfortunately that was about all I could do. I did all I could with the time I had, and really the whole time I was training, I never really felt that great on the bike, never felt like myself, never felt like I was last year, but I was doing the best I could. Was trusting the process, no choice, and I got 2 solid weeks in. Had all kinds of stuff to get ready. I've never done the West Coast swing of outdoors before, so had tons of stuff to gather up and load up. I put everything in the old Dodge Dakota, had it loaded down beyond what I've ever seen it before. I don't even know how I got everything in there, but had her packed down and had to set out 36 hours to Southern California by myself, solo, in the Dakota. I think I made like 23 hours the first day, stopped at a truck stop and slept in the whip. I actually got a really good night of sleep after driving 24 hours, but slept great in the truck, finished the drive the next day. I ended up leaving here around 5 a.m. on a Monday and got to SoCal about 8 p.m. on Tuesday, so made pretty good time, if I may say so myself. Got to the Mez family's house. Got to give them a huge thank you for allowing me to stay. I wouldn't have been able to do that trip without them, so thank you to them. Got to their house, was able to kind of decompress for a day or two, was able to do press day at Paula on Friday. Luckily, everybody was invited to it, so I was able to do press day on Friday to get a feel for the track and my bike. Everything felt pretty good, a little better than I expected, and we were ready to roll. Saturday at Paula, first round, actually had to start on a stock motor. All I had was a pipe and reeds, so I was really struggling for horsepower. I think in the 2A practices, I was 23rd in the first one and 25th in the second one, but there was a lot of fast guys in the B group, a lot of West Coast guys, locals, off-road guys, all kinds of stuff from the B group that were fast, so I ended up 34th overall, which wasn't great. I definitely wasn't too bummed to be able to at least make the show my first try after thinking I wasn't going to be racing at all. But I felt like I at least had a lot more speed than that. I feel like my speed's kind of been my thing, at least my sprint speed, for a couple laps at a time at least. So I was a little disappointed with the riding, but we were into the show. First moto, I really struggled bad. Paula was really sketchy. West Coast, just rutted, edgy, all around. It was a gnarly course. Really struggled with the track and struggled with my setup the first moto. I had made a couple adjustments and I went the wrong way, so that's on me. I'm not the best at adjusting the bike. Usually need some help with that kind of stuff, so I went the wrong way. Really fought my setup the whole first moto. Second moto, thank you to my boy Taylor Muto and my suspension guy Chris Maynard from Maynard Racing Performance with the Race Tech Gold Valves. Thanks to them, I was able to actually make the proper adjustments for the second moto. Unfortunately, fell on the second turn in Moto 2, so I had to come from the back. I actually felt like I was charging almost the whole time through about 25 minutes. I made my way up to 29th and had kind of a close call in the back and kind of mailed it in from there. I didn't want to go out and toss myself across the track the first round of 11. One of my main goals was to make sure I got to all 11 rounds, so I was trying to keep that in mind. But ended up going 32-31 at Paula, and that was better than any ride I had in any of the outdoors last year. So start out like that after having 2 weeks of prep, not really any expectations and just not really being ready at all. I really couldn't complain with that. I was right about to break into the top 30, and that was kind of the next step that I wanted to take. I was tired of finishing 33rd to 40th. It just kind of gets old. It's cool to make the show, but I got to be able to show a little bit more than that in the races. So I was actually pretty happy. It felt like my fitness was better than last year already. Felt like I had a lot more in the tank, and all in all, it definitely felt like I had something to build on. Following that, was able to stay the week in SoCal with the Mez family. Another thank you to them. Did a little bit of riding at Glen Helen with my boy J-Rob. I was able to test my mod setup. My boy Taylor Muto helped me get that thing back in there. So tested the mod setup at Glen Helen. We were good to roll, back race ready. Headed to Hangtown. Another thank you to Taylor Muto for coming to Hangtown with me as my mechanic. He was basically a charity, so thanks Muto, you're the man. Headed up to Hangtown on Friday morning, about 4:30 in the morning. We left my boy J-Rob's house. Stayed the night with him the night before, and we trucked on up to Sacramento. I had never been to Hangtown before, so I was really excited for it. It wasn't quite what I expected, honestly. I was really thinking it was going to be a lot more suited to me than Palo was. I was expecting the sawdust and the rice holes and a lot more soft dirt, and I didn't get any of that. First practice, I went out, and it was already pretty hard packed. It was pretty good in the morning in practice. Like, conditions weren't bad, but it wasn't quite what I was expecting. First practice, I was 28th in the A group, so I thought I was good, but then B group barked on me again. I think like 10 or 11 guys from B group were faster than me, so after the first session, I was sitting on the outside looking in, and I was a long way away from home to be on the outside looking in, so really had to focus up big time and make sure I put the send on for the second practice. Second practice, I had one lap where I was stuck behind somebody, and then my next lap I uncorked a pretty good one, and I ended up dropping 5 seconds a lap. I think I ended up 26th overall after that practice, and I think a couple more guys might have passed me, so I think I was 28th overall for qualifying at Hangtown, which I was pretty happy with, being that was my first time there. So 2 for 2 to start the season, no complaints. Hangtown was a really hot one, so I knew that was going to be a long day. First moto, got a pretty bad start. Shocker, I'm on the 2-stroke against the 450, so it's in the contract. But bad start, tried to battle my way through, and kind of similar to Moto 1 at Pala, I just really lost my flow. Couldn't get out of my own way, was struggling a little bit. I don't think it was so much my setup as it was just me and the track. The track was really hard packed and sketchy, rough, edgy. All around, it wasn't exactly the conditions that are my favorite, but everybody had to ride the same thing. But it was kind of hard for me being on the 2-smoke on a sketchy track like that I don't feel super comfortable on against 450s, which, that's already a tough task. But first moto was a pretty pathetic performance. I even ended up taking my goggles off, which was probably the dumbest move I made all season. Figured I wasn't battling with anybody, so I'd be good, but I forgot about getting lapped by all kinds of people, so I ended up getting pelted for a good portion of the moto, and I think I was 34th first moto at Hangtown, so nothing to write home about whatsoever, but it was really hot out, so I had to get some good recovery in. And second moto, there was a huge first turn pile up. I got pretty lucky because I came out of the gate and those guys started pulling me, so I let off and ducked to the inside, and almost everybody in that pile up was near me on the gate, so I was happy to not be involved in that. But second moto, I actually ran around 21st, 22nd for most of the moto, and I got really tired, like probably the most tired I've ever gotten. Got pretty hot, about overheated, arm pumped, the whole body was just shutting down, and I pretty much just went into survival mode to the finish. I ended up somehow getting 26th, which that was my best result on the 2-stroke to date, so I was happy about that. But just wish I had a little bit more in the tank. I was super tired and fatigued for that second half of moto and didn't have anything really left to give. So I was smoked. Got the truck loaded up post-moto, in almost post heat stroke, and then headed out straight to Colorado, started driving, made it to Nevada and into Utah the first night, slept in the truck again, and made it to Colorado the next night by about 8 p.m. to my guy Super Dave's house. Super Dave and Endurocross Patty allowed me to stay with them for the week. Can't thank them enough. Wouldn't have been able to do the trip without them. Was able to spend the week in Colorado, acclimating to the altitude, just relaxing. I'd had a lot of time on the road and was pretty worn out. And my girlfriend flew in on Thursday. She and I celebrated our anniversary, which was super fun. Then we were able to get press day on Friday to try to jet the bike and figure out how it was going to run in the altitude. Everything went pretty well, and I really enjoyed the track, so I thought we were good to go. First practice in the morning. The track was super muddy and deep on Saturday morning. First qualifying, I was struggling big time. I only got one good lap in, and I was like, I think I was like 43rd or 44th after the first practice. I kind of thought that the track was going to get slower and thought I was going to be screwed, but ended up pulling my head out of my ass, really focusing, and ended up dropping 7 seconds a lap in the second practice, and it was gnarly to drop 7 seconds a lap, and I ended up, I want to say 28th overall. I think there was 1 or 2 guys in the B practice that were faster than me, but I was 26th in A, which I was thrilled about. I thought Thunder Valley was going to be one of the hardest ones for me, being that I was at a bigger horsepower disadvantage at the altitude. Had never been there before, so I was hyped to make it 3 for 3 and put it in the motos. First moto, started out super sketchy. It didn't get a great start and was kind of having some moments the first couple laps, just wasn't flowing right, and ended up having a fall. Almost thought about packing it in and saving it for a Moto2 charge, but when I was out there by myself in the back, the fans were just loving it, cheering me on the whole way, so I had no choice but to stay out there and dig. Ended up another 34th, I believe, first moto at Colorado. Then second moto, I actually almost missed the moto. I had the wrong schedule from the week before, barely showed up in time. Last gate pick, started last, and I think this was actually my best moto of the season. I was way back in the beginning, but I started picking people off, was charging hard the whole time, and especially being that it's in the altitude and that thin mountain air, I was really excited about how good I felt throughout the whole moto. Fitness felt good. I had some battles the whole time, and ended up coming home 28th. So not the best finish ever, but I was a lot happier with the riding than I had been at probably any national I had been to yet. So that was really cool. Then we had the trek home. Was thankful to have my girlfriend as co-pilot for the ride home. I'd been doing all the other drives pretty much solo, so she and I trekked it home from Colorado. Made really good time. I think we only took about 23, 24 hours. We never stopped. Sent it through the night to finish the drive, so that wasn't the most ideal for my body. I spent the week of High Point basically just resting the whole time, sleeping, just trying to recuperate. Then High Point came around. I brought the legend Superfan with me. Was super thankful to bring him. He was able to drive me up to High Point while I slept in his shotgun seat without a choice in the world, so that was super helpful. We also met up with KMS Factory Phil. He was a huge help for us during High Point. Thank you, Phil. You're the man. My family was there as well, so we had a really good crew. Saturday morning, it was wet. It was muddy. I think they kind of miscalculated on the track. They had it plowed up, and then an extra rainstorm came through that they didn't know about, so the track was incredibly soupy. I actually thought the first practice was going to be pointless. I thought they were going to fix it after the first one, and the second one would be the good one, so I actually almost didn't go out for the first practice, but luckily I did. First practice, once we hit the green flag, I was behind my boy Freddie. Followed him for an entire lap, came in the mechanics area, and it said I was in 7th, so that was pretty crazy. I figured it wouldn't hold, but was stoked I was able to throw down quick. I ended up 25th in that practice, and then second practice, crazily enough, the track actually got worse. They never really fixed it, and I still went out there trying to send it for a time because you never know when you're going to need one, but I had a couple of crashes, never really put one together, so I think I was probably last in the second practice, but I was 26th overall, so I was glad to make it 4 for 4. High Point's one of my favorites on the schedule, so was really excited for the motos. It was going to be gnarly though. The track was insane. When it starts out muddy like that and they don't really have the time to fix it, it just gets worse and worse. So High Point was probably the gnarliest track I've ever ridden, just ruts everywhere, but I felt like I was more on an enduro course than a motocross track. But first moto, I actually got a decent start, had a couple of first lap incidents, took some bad lines, and there was a guy down and I rolled a jump and almost pretty much got stuck in a mud hole and held the bike wide open trying to get out of it, so that wasn't ideal. And then I had a fall, so I was way in the back, and about a lap later my bike started detonating. I could hear it making noise, so I didn't want to risk it, and I ended up pulling over to Superfan, told him what it was doing, and we figured it was the piston detonating. So we thought we were maybe just going to roll up for the second moto to line up, get our money, and leave, but that's not how we roll. We wanted to race, so me, Superfan, Factory Phil, my guy Chris Maynard, we had fans pitching in and everyone. Lesher even gave me a base gasket, thanks to him, fellow two-stroke ripper, but we all scrambled in the pits to do a top end in about 40 to 45 minutes in between motos. We even had Racer X coming through taking pictures of it. It was kind of a crazy moment, but we ended up getting it done, and actually plenty of time. We got her fired up. She was good to go. Second moto, I had last gate pick, so I was totally hung out to dry on the start, dead last. Another first lap fall. That's kind of my trademark, unfortunately. I just kind of struggle. I try to make moves quick when the track's a little gnarly for what I'm trying to do, and I end up going down. So another first lap fall. I actually got up and was riding really good, caught the pack, was making moves, and was trying to catch Lesher for a two-stroke battle. And then I had an issue where I landed off a jump and my bike was just like halfway stuck wide open. Like the bike revved out on its own, but it wasn't the throttle, like the grip, the throttle tube, everything was fine. So I pulled off and then started the bike back up and it was fine. So I pulled in, obviously, because that's super sketchy. It wasn't going to stay out there like that. So our day was done. That was a bummer. Double DNF at High Point, but we were 4 for 4 on qualifying, so I was excited about that. Spent the off weeks doing a lot of resting. I had done a lot of driving, a lot of racing already, so we needed some recovery. And spent the off weekend testing the bike. We went through it and we didn't find anything. So I rode the bike 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. Had no issues whatsoever. Pounded the crap out of it and nothing went wrong. So I thought we were good to go. And then we hit RedBud. RedBud was a little bit of a tough one because in between High Point and RedBud, my boy Nick Hayes had a really bad injury where he broke his neck and he's actually still in the hospital. But Nick Hayes actually took my bike to RedBud for me last year, and we were pitted with him last year at RedBud. So that happened right before RedBud, and then we headed to RedBud where I went with him last year. So that was really kind of stuck in my mind, honestly, but I did my best to put it out. First practice, RedBud, I was really tripping about the leap when in reality the corner was too messed up for me to even think about the leap, so I was kind of worrying about nothing. But first practice, just didn't put it together at all. I think I was 36th in the A, and then there was a handful of guys in the B that were faster than me too. And typically at RedBud, the track gets slower as it goes, so I honestly thought I was going to be out. I thought I was screwed, but second practice really put my head down and somehow managed to drop 3 seconds off my lap time and put myself right into 35th, and I literally only qualified by less than 1/10 of a second, so it was super close, barely threw it in there, but we were in. First moto, I actually was yanking really good jumps off the gate at RedBud. I could kind of roll in there because the backstop was pretty far back, so I was getting some good jumps, but I was far outside, so I couldn't really do much. I was trying to fight, was battling, and started losing the flow and started not feeling very good. If you guys have followed along with me before, you know I've had issues with nausea and anxiety while I race, and I hadn't had it happen in a little bit. I thought I had pretty much gotten it under control, but I don't know if maybe the whole Nick Hayes deal had something to do with it, but I started getting really nauseous, started throwing up, and ended up having to pull off in the first moto, which was super embarrassing because nothing was wrong with the bike or anything like that. It was just me and basically inside my head, so that really sucked, but I did my best to kind of gather myself up in between motos and just did what I could to get myself mentally ready to actually go do the job. And I felt like I had turned myself around pretty good, was ready to go for the second moto, and got another decent start and actually had made some good moves. I thought I was in the mix, making passes, not just getting past. And then second lap, landed off a huge tabletop and had the same issue as I did at High Point. The bike revved on its own when I landed. Was actually pretty sketchy. Luckily, I was paying a lot of attention, so it didn't go too haywire, but landed, the bike whiskeyed from me, I shut it off, and then started to back up, and the bike was fine again, so obviously pulled it back in, was done with that, and cheered on my boys in the mechanics area, tried to show some support while I could, and tried to keep my mind off the absolute disaster that was my last couple of rounds. And yeah, RedBud, another DNF, and we were 4 DNFs in a row. I went back on my bike, looked at it again. We found there was a little bit of grit in the slide and the carburetor, so I guess that's what was hanging it up. That'll do it. So we got that fixed. Southwick, headed up solo again to Massachusetts. My guy Super Dave was very thankful. He flew in for me. We had some travel issues though. Super Dave's flight to and from Southwick got canceled and he had to rebook, and then his flight there also got delayed too. So our travel budget ended up going from $200 to $900, so that was a bit of a swift kick in the nuts, but you'll have that. It's the way she goes. So me and Super Dave were ready for Southwick, but unfortunately, I woke up on a Saturday morning at Southwick with probably the gnarliest headache I've ever had. Felt like I was hungover, and I don't even drink. Was throwing up, crapping myself, the whole 9 yards. Just Could barely even see straight, and I also don't really hardly ride in the sand ever either, so I had a feeling I was going to struggle anyway. But then waking up feeling like that, I knew I had my work cut out for me. I actually almost didn't ride. I really didn't think I had it in me, and then last second I decided to suit up and give it my best shot, and did what I could. I think I was 39th in the A group the first practice, but I really wasn't feeling good, and I actually had to stop and throw up in the infield for about 3 or 4 minutes, so that was far from ideal. But we were pretty far sitting out after the first practice, and at Southwick, the track really gets rougher as you go, so I pretty much knew I was screwed. Second practice, I tried to go get after it, but I really wasn't feeling good again. Got 1 lap in and had to pull over and take it back to the pit. I almost didn't do the LCQ also just because of how bad I was feeling. I had no energy, was super weak, and just didn't really feel that safe out there, but I don't go all that way just to not even try, so we gave it our best shot. Actually pulled a great start in the LCQ, but unfortunately didn't make moves quick enough, wasn't aggressive enough, and got passed by a couple people, and then one of the people that passed me ended up crashing in the following corner. I got stuck behind him, and that was all she wrote. So Southwick, that was our first DNQ of the year. Ended up sticking around and filming the motos, no choice. That's actually where I started my zero access feature, if you guys have seen that on my channel. Was doing what I could to run around the fences and get some shots through all the different sections, and just try to give you guys some perspective of what it's like to be a fan at these races. These guys are sick to watch and fun to film, so as much as I would have rather been racing, that's what I was going there for. I did enjoy finding something else to do with my time when I didn't make the motos, so that was good. Following Southwick, had a couple days to rest, not much time at all, and then I had an 18-hour trek to Millville, which after sitting in traffic for 2 hours turned into 20. Did almost the whole drive on Thursday, and then Friday finished it up. Met up with my boys Checkers, Big Al, all my Midwest crew up there. Was stoked to see those guys and was really excited for Millville. It was probably my favorite track on the schedule until this year, but this year they actually made a couple changes I didn't really love. They put a bunch of random singles and just some weird stuff that took away from the flow of the track, in my opinion. And then they put these triple step-ups going up Mount Martin that were really hard on the 250. The 450s were getting it, but in practice, before they had the berm built up, there was no way I was going to make it. The Star guys weren't even doing it in practice, so I know I wasn't going to be able to, but we all had the same track to ride, so I had an opportunity to try to make up the distance, and I just couldn't do it. First practice, I was way off. I think I was 39th in the A practice, and a few guys in B were better than me as well, so I had a couple seconds to make up. Second practice, I actually felt like I rode great. I really felt like I pulled it together and did everything I could. I felt like I barely left a little bit on the table because I got a couple people in my way on the lap, but other than that, I really felt like I executed the lap well, and I ended up 38th. I was about 0.4 of a second out, and I was losing 2.5 seconds on the one segment on the hill. So without that hill segment, I would have been closer to 25th, which would have been awesome. But unfortunately, that doesn't really do anything for us. If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle, but she ain't. So missed out by 2 spots, headed to the LCQ. I was feeling a little defeated just about the uphill, but my guy Checkers, he helped reel me in, got me excited, got me hyped up and ready. The year before at Millville, I was in the LCQ, and I'd almost made it happen until a bike malfunction. So I knew it was possible. I actually got a really good start, came out about 5th, and I'd moved my way into 4th. At that point, I kind of mentally, I thought I had it. I thought I was good to go, and I was in the spot I needed to be. Then I got to the uphill and had to double single up the hill and got passed by 2 people up the hill on 1 lap. Did all I could throughout the rest of that next lap to try to catch back up just to get passed again up the hill the following lap. And at that point, I mean, I need to be mentally tougher than this, but at that point I was just deflated. I was mentally destroyed. I knew I wasn't going to be able to make up that much time and just to get passed up the hill every lap. So didn't have much in me for the rest of the LCQ, and just kind of where the fatigue deal started creeping in on me. I kind of thought it was more mental than anything just because I was butthurt I couldn't get up the hill, but really like 2 or 3 laps in the LCQ, I was smoked. I really didn't even have 4 full laps in me, which was kind of embarrassing. And especially when I started the season, I felt a lot better even than last year. Even at Colorado and the altitude, I felt like I was strong the whole moto. So I kind of thought maybe the travel was just starting to get to me. I thought I maybe just needed a little bit of rest, but I was going to get to Washougal quite a few days before the race, so I thought that was what I was going to need to get to feeling better. But stayed, did zero access footage again from Millville. Went and stayed with my boy Checkers on Sunday. Did some axe throwing, a few festivities, just tried to have some fun. He was roasting me for not qualifying and not being able to do triples. That's kind of our thing now, is Sunday after Millville is annual roast Matty B for not qualifying day. No choice, but we had a good time. Left out from Monday on Washougal super early. Drove a really good portion of the drive on Monday. I think I made it 17 hours Monday, so then I only had 8 to go on Tuesday. It's a really cool drive going from Millville to Washougal. That's probably one of my favorites, going up through Montana and Idaho, Washington, all that. I do really enjoy the road tripping. It's a lot of fun to me, but Unfortunately, I don't think my body likes it as much as I do. My body really just started getting fatigued big time from all the time behind the wheel. Made it to my boy Chase B's house by Tuesday afternoon in Clackamas, Oregon. Big thank you to my boy Chase B and Blakely Powder Coating for helping me with a place to stay. I definitely couldn't have done that trip either year without their help, so thank you to them. Spent the week mostly just hanging out and trying to rest, recoup. Went out to PIR on Thursday night, and I didn't race just because I wanted to continue resting. I wanted to give myself my best chance at Washougal, so I didn't race PIR. Went out there, got some video, and saw some friends, and really was having a good time. I'm getting to travel the country, racing dirt bikes, riding dirt bikes. I'm just trying to enjoy it as much as I can, even when things aren't going perfectly. But my girlfriend flew in Friday to Washougal, so I was stoked she made her second appearance of the season. And Washougal was going to be a fun one because it was the two-stroke shootout, moto memes, jets and donuts, motorsport, Washougal, all kinds of people had put up a bunch of money for the two-strokes, so there was a lot more two-strokes than usual. I was really excited to be on a little more of a level playing field with these guys, but unfortunately, first practice, Washougal, right when I got the green flag, I was on my fast lap and actually felt like it was going really well. And unbeknownst to me, I lost the radiator hose. My bike puked out all of its coolant. It was blowing steam and smoke everywhere, and it made it right to the whoops right before the finish line before it quit on me. And I didn't know this until about a week later, but the lap that I was on when my bike quit at the finish line, I actually would have qualified with that lap. But I didn't make it there, so way she goes. But I actually had a bad clamp in my radiator. I had some people help me with some bike work the day before, and there was a bad hose clamp. We lost the hose, lost all of our coolant. I kind of thought we lost the whole motor, but we put coolant back in it, fired it up. It sounded okay. I was really nervous about it, but didn't really have much of a choice. I was all the way in Washington trying to make the Nationals, so we went back after it, second practice. I had every opportunity to make it happen. A lot of people got faster in the second practice, and I just wasn't one of those people. I didn't find my flow. I think I was a little bit spun out mentally from everything that had happened that morning. Just didn't ride very good, like myself at all, and I think I ended up like 44th, 45th overall. I missed it by about a second, so close but no cigar. We were out again, and we had to head to the LCQ. And this is one of the crazier moments of the season, this LCQ. So we go up, car turns sideways, and I go to hold my bike wide open, and the bike just, it shuts off. And I thought the bike just finished itself off. I thought it blew up, and I just put my hands up and was waiting for the gate to drop. And then somehow, the same time when my bike cuts off, the gate doesn't drop. They have a gate malfunction, so I don't really know what to do. I look down and my gas is off. I could not believe it. I don't know who did it. It definitely wasn't me. I've never turned my gas off on race day in my life, but somebody turned my gas off. So I turned my gas back on. My bike would not start. I kicked it, and I kicked it. Finally got it fired. Then we go restart. The gate doesn't drop again. So 2 for 2 on gate malfunctions. It's in the contract. Third gate drop, it finally dropped. And we finally got off to a start. And this was finally my first bad LCQ start I've had. I've been to a few LCQs, and I had gotten good starts up until this one. Bad start, got the crap used out of me all the way up Horsepower Hill, and actually managed to make a couple pretty good moves and was up to, I think, 8th, battling for 7th, but obviously you need top 4, so that wasn't going to do me a whole lot of good, but I was doing my best to give my best effort and push forward, and literally, like, on the second lap, I was so tired, like, could barely breathe, arm pump, couldn't hang on. Felt like my whole body was just shutting down, and then had a really sketchy moment in the whoops at the end of the second lap, and at that point, full disclosure, I just mailed it in. I gave up, and I am not proud of that, but I had no energy. Mentally, I was destroyed, and the season had just started spiraling out of control. I really didn't know what to do about it, but it's safe to say we were DNQ again at Washougal, 3 for 3 on DNQs, so that really sucked, especially being the two-stroke race. A lot of two-strokes made it, and I didn't, so it ain't the two-strokes fault, it's mine. But yeah, me and my girlfriend, we split up and covered different sections of the track for our zero access. I think that's probably where we got our best footage there in Unadilla, so thank you to her, I appreciate it. And we had our trek home. We had no choice but to send it through the night right after the race. We drove all night, and we drove straight from Washougal to Chicago without stopping. Stopped at my grandma's house. We made it there at like 3 in the morning. Actually, the next day we went to Columbus, Ohio, stayed with my family for another day, and then we finished the drive. So the beginning of the drive was super mental, but then we kind of broke it up, so it wasn't too bad. Was thankful to have a co-pilot with me because every other drive, for the most part, had been solo, which that had really been wearing on me. So finally made it home, and we had a 3-week break, and I didn't do anything. I didn't touch the bike. I didn't exercise. I didn't really do much of anything. Made some content and just relaxed. I was just trying to get my body back to where it was at the beginning of the season. I felt like I dug myself into a hole that I couldn't really get myself out of, so I just rested. did nothing, made sure the bike was ready, and made sure I was fresh as I could be going into Unadilla. The only bummer was I found out after Washougal that losing all the coolant did take out the race motor, so I had to go back to my stock head and cylinder and go into a really fast, wide open track like Unadilla. I knew that was going to be like pissing in the wind, but you guys know me, we had no choice. We went there and sent it as hard as we could. I was lucky to have my girlfriend with me for that one again, so I didn't have any more solo driving to do for the season. I had her for Unadilla and Superfan for the following two, so was stoked on that. I actually felt like I rode really good at Unadilla. Felt like I threw down a fast lap and wasn't really that close. I was still a second and a half off, and I was like 44th overall, I think, so that wasn't cool. I felt like I really rode well, but just was struggling with the horsepower. The track was wide open, really fast. We went before the 250s that day too, so the track was about as wide open as it was going to be. I really enjoyed it and felt like I rode it well, but just not well enough. I'm headed to the LCQ, got a really bad start, got yanked right out of the gate, and then had a couple people crash right in front of me, so I had to wait for them to stop crashing, then kind of turn around them and get on my way. So I was all the way last, had a couple more people getting sketchy right in front of me. So another thing I'm not the proudest of, but this is what I did. I pulled over, I acted like something was wrong with my bike for a little bit so I could get some clear track, and then I pulled back out there and started riding hard. I just didn't want to be in the back with a bunch of people all over the place and get taken out by somebody for no reason, for no reward. So I rode by myself. I actually really enjoyed myself. I did get really tired again in about 2 or 3 laps, but I had fun riding Unadilla. That was my favorite track of the year. So at this point, the energy was bad, the bike was bad, our trajectory was bad. The whole season had pretty much just spiraled out of control. So yeah, another DNQ at Unadilla, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to make it work with the stock motor anymore, so I was very thankful for Luke from Fathead to help get me ahead for Bud's Creek. That definitely helped a lot. It wasn't quite as much as my original race motor, obviously with a stock cylinder on it, but the Fathead helped out a ton, so thank you, Luke. Superfan and I headed to Bud's Creek. We were ready to go. We were very hopeful that the bike was going to be better with the Fathead. First practice, I put down a couple decent laps, but I was still a few spots out. I think I still needed a second and a half, and had a few laps even where I was on good laps and fell, made some mistakes, so I wasn't really putting it together. And this year, I didn't really feel like I put it together like I usually do. That's usually one of my strong suits. Last year, I was really good at putting it together. This year, I felt like I can't get out of my own way. Yeah, second practice, I changed my strategy. I had been a second to a second and a half off pretty much every race for the last 4 or 5 races, so I decided I was just going to send it pretty much as hard as I could and just hope that I made it work for an entire lap, because just doing a decent lap wasn't doing anything for me. Whether I was 37th or 57th, if I'm out, I'm out. So I sent it harder than I probably ever sent it at a national the second practice, and I sent it way too hard because I was making mistakes everywhere, was just all over the place, wasn't executing. It wasn't for lack of effort, but I was an accident waiting to happen in the second practice, never even got a full lap in, so that was my worst qualifying by far. I think we were 50th or 51st. I had to go back to the LCQ, not the best gate pick either, so I was stuck on the inside, but that's actually kind of where I wanted to be. Got a decent jump, out-jumped a few people on the inside of me, so I thought I was going to be able to tuck around good, but then kind of came together with somebody, fell in the first turn, and that was all she wrote for that one as well. Finished it out, of course, but there was nothing to be gained from that one, so another failure. We stayed and raced for amateur day, had some fun there, tried to get the mojo back, but we weren't really able to find it. And then what we did notice though, I started having some suspension issues, and we came back and realized that the forks I was using, they must have been like just broken or something. I think there's a plastic piston in the KYB forks that breaks sometimes because my clickers weren't working. I basically had no dampening, like the forks were just soft as can be, and whenever I'm sending it at the national, I'm a little too shy to realize stuff like that. I'm so zoned in and focused on myself, so went back to the setup that I used for the first 5 rounds that I actually had success on. We bolted that back on, got my race setup back from JMS Performance, and got my good head and cylinder back on, had better suspension, so I thought, and we were really, really looking forward to ending on a high note. It had been a bad streak of races, but I wasn't ready to give up, not even close to being ready to give up, and I just didn't want to go out on another DNQ. I had spent the last couple of months thinking about how I couldn't make nationals, and I just wanted to go out and remind myself how I can ride. I know I hadn't been riding like myself for most of the year, and I just wanted to go prove myself. So we went up to Ironman. We were excited. Me and Superfan were there. My family was there. We had a good crew. All signs were pointing to having a good day. I woke up that morning really excited, felt good mentally, ready to go, and Unfortunately, after the bad qualifying at Buds, they put me in B practice, but then they did something new where they tried a new procedure for red flag restart if it was like halfway through a moto. So they pointed us off one by one, and I was the third guy to go. So I actually was pretty hyped to be in the B practice, was able to get off to some clear track. And when I got to the green flag, I was ready to go. I was amped and sent it into the first corner through the mechanics area and hit a bump and just front flipped into oblivion. Smacked my head, took a huge hit. Was super shaken up, but I ended up getting up. They helped me get back up, back on the bike. I rode to a fence post, straightened the bike out, and then ended up doing a fast lap. And I didn't know it at the time, but I actually went to the top of the B group that lap, and watching the GoPro back, it was probably the best fast lap I had done in like 6 or 7 rounds, which makes no sense because shortly after that, started really not feeling right upstairs, started feeling like I was in virtual reality, like I was in a video game or something, and ended up pulling off. And right when I pulled off, some AMA officials were waiting for me, telling me to go get checked out. So I had to ride to the Alpine Stars mobile medical unit and was locked up in cell block C in the medic unit for an hour and a half under observation for concussion. They did the little finger test on me. They just wagged it back and forth like twice, and they were like, yeah, buddy, you need to relax. Go ahead and lay down. So end of the season on a concussion and yet another DNQ. I think we ended up like 42nd after only having 1 lap. So yeah, I definitely wasn't for lack of effort whatsoever. I mean, I straight up knocked myself silly and still got up and sent it for a lap. It's not like I had a conscious decision to do that, but I mean, as motocross racers, we're only wired one way, and that's to try to get the job done if we can. I thought I was okay, and I guess I wasn't, so that was the season done right there. We loaded her up. We finished watching the motos at Ironman, and yeah, all in all, season did not go even close to how I was hoping for. I really thought how everything came together so last minute. I thought that I would struggle at the beginning and kind of build as the season went and then be really good at the end, and it went the complete opposite. I was good at the beginning, got a little worse in the middle, and then was just terrible at the end. I had gotten to the point where I was so fatigued where I was getting tired just on my fast lap, which is super embarrassing. It makes it seem like I'm super out of shape, but I know I didn't just come out of shape automatically during the middle of the season. Like, I know something's been going on. I don't know if it's Epstein-Barr or some other type of fatigue deal. But yeah, I was struggling with that heavy. Was getting to like 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon every day before I was needing a nap. And still been struggling with that a little bit. I feel like it's maybe been getting a little better. But this series just beat the hell out of me. I'm super thankful to have had the opportunity to go to all these tracks, some of them for the first time, and travel the country, racing, riding a dirt bike, but it definitely put a hurting on me. It was rough. It was really hard. I knew it was going to be hard, but it was even harder than I thought. And as much as I enjoy the road tripping and the traveling, I think that was what the straw that broke the camel's back. I was just smoked. So much driving, all the bike work, all the video work I've been doing. I just think I was trying to do the job of 2 or 3 people all by myself, and it just doesn't quite work. So if I do this again, I think I'm going to need to do a few things differently. I'm not going to be able to be trucking around in the pickup all the time. We might need to get a van, might need to send my bike with somebody else, do a little bit of flying. I'm not sure, but I am super thankful for the opportunity I got this year. I never thought this is what I was going to be doing in my life, but here we are, and I definitely never thought I would gain the following that I've gained. It's crazy to me how many people came up to the races and offered support, just came by to chat, take pictures, get signatures, even for Superfan. I mean, it's so cool for us. We never would have imagined. We're just a couple of locals that used to go racing on YZ250 and have fun, and now we got tens of thousands of people following along with us on social media and coming up to us at the track wanting pictures, and it's just cool, man. I love motocross so much, got tons of passion for it, so the fact that I'm able to share this passion with all of you on the tube, it's really fun for me. I enjoy it a lot, and I'm very thankful for all of you that follow along with me. I wouldn't be able to do it without all of you guys. Without you, I am nothing. And without all my sponsors and supporters, I am nothing as well. I'm going to put a list of them here at the end, but thank you to all of them. Thank you to anyone that's supported me in any way and helped me make this happen in any way. I couldn't do it without any single one of you guys, and I'm not sure if we're ever going to do this again. I really don't know. We're still healing up from injury right now, and I'm hoping to get back on the bike in another week or 2, but still been super sore. The ribs are beat up, and was kind of having some headaches a week or 2 after Ironman, but we're starting to come around. We're going to get back on the bike soon, and we might have some changes in the program coming soon, so stay tuned. I'll keep you guys up to date, but this went a lot longer than I wanted to, but I got a lot to say, no choice. It was a long season, and at the end of the day, it was rough. It didn't go how I wanted, but I enjoyed it, and I appreciate you guys following along and listening to me. Thank you guys very much, and catch you guys next time.